Hello YouTube, this is Neon, and today I'm going to be talking about another crazy foster home experience that I had in my late teens. Well, in my teens. I'm going to go into a little bit of the history, or whatever, my experience, not the history. My experience being in foster homes, and share a couple of other experiences that I had in addition to this Big Daddy experience. I guess most of these are Big Daddy experiences. So the first thing that I want to share is that the foster care system not in Los Angeles, in California, in my opinion, it is notorious for not being good. It is notorious for not taking good care of the children. It's notorious for the children who come out really not having any kind of an adult life. Those who do probably had some kind of family member to rely on once they exited the system, or something happened to help them, but generally speaking, it's rare that somebody raised in foster homes will go to college and get a degree and get financial stability and stuff in California, because our foster care system is not good. So most foster parents, in my opinion, they're in it for the money. Now, the first thing that they will say is, well, we don't get that much money. You know, the fact that they have this really cute little, I would say, glib response just goes to show that they're in it for the money. I'm not saying they're getting tons of money, because they're not, but they're in it for the little money that they're getting. And if they wasn't getting whatever little money they get, they would not be taking foster children. That's an issue. It's really an issue. So I remember one foster. Put your glasses on when you're reading. Take your glasses off when you're not reading. So I remember one foster home I went into. The husband, he had wounded his knee. Yeah, he had a bad knee on the job, and I believe that lack of income and the fact that he was not making money was why they decided to take in foster children, so they could bring in some more money. Although this was a shelter home. Shelter homes, late 80s, early 90s, when I was in the foster homes in my teens, shelter homes would take children for brief periods of time, perhaps weeks or less. Let's just say less than a month or two, less than 2 months. And then foster homes could take children for up to a couple years. One of the sad things is that children do tend to bounce from home to home to home. So that's part of the built-in instability of foster homes, in my opinion. They're also not safe, to be quite frank. There was another foster home I had been in where the lady, and this is kind of a granddaddy of an example. I may do another talk specifically about this, but this foster lady, she lost her home while she had myself and my sibling in her in her home as her foster children. So what she ended up doing was dumping us with friends of hers. This lady she dumped us with was taking care of, like, altogether, I think it was like maybe 5 or 6 of her grandchildren from different children of hers. And I don't even know if these were all her biological children. So she dumped us 2 more teenage boys there. And I didn't know what was happening, what was going on. I don't know what she told us. We were just like, okay, well, we're living here now with other strangers. And we found out that she told them that we were runaways and that she couldn't help us, but maybe they could help us. So her friend said, okay, I'll let them stay with us. Eventually, she got tired of feeding us because teenage boys eat a lot. And I think she called the appropriate authorities. And what actually happened was that our foster mom, upon losing her home, wanted to be able to collect the money that she was getting for us as long as possible. So that's why she didn't. That's why she sort of dumped us there for. I'm thinking it was maybe a month before Child Protective Services came and picked us up and brought us to another foster home. That woman was in it for the money. And again, as I said, what I'm sharing here is not professional expert information. It's just my experience being in the foster homes in my teens in the late 80s, early 90s. They're not safe. Some of the foster homes are very, very dangerous, unfortunately, and sometimes really bad things happen. I feel like for me as a teenage boy, it was a little safer because in the back of their minds, well, he's almost our size. For the foster moms, he's at least taller than us, and he might burn the house down if we do something to him. You never know. So I almost felt like because I was a teenage boy, I was a little safer. But in instances where I've seen young children who are in abusive situations, if the child doesn't have bones routinely broken, I wouldn't call and report anything because I knew how unsafe and how uncared for and how unwanted foster children are, and that it can be worse in the foster home than in the dysfunctional biological home. Now, info about foster. Okay, I shared that already. So I went into one foster home where this woman had like 6 young children. I was a teenager and I was supposed to stay there for probably the standard 6 months or whatever, I don't know. But she had shared with me that part of her contract with the foster care agency in California or in Riverside County, right, was that part of the year she had to take teenagers. A lot of foster care or foster homes, foster parents, they don't want teenagers. They just don't want teenagers, and it's really sad to me, but a teenager like myself who had no criminal history, no violence or whatever, we could be placed, but even for us it was difficult. Some of the foster homes that took me, it was more like they didn't really want to be bothered with small children because in their mind you had to do more work and a teenage boy could take care of himself. So sometimes that would be the motivation for why they would take teenagers. But usually it was about them and how it would reflect on them. It really wasn't about helping anybody or helping young children. In cases where it was, thank God, but certainly even in those cases I believe that the money was the deciding factor, even though they were, as the case of the one shelter home, they were good to us. They were decent people. So this foster home that they took me in, where there was a bunch of young children, like 6 young children, maybe ages 5 to 7. Use your glasses to read, Neon. I was part of that contract where she had to take teenagers so many months out of the year. Now, she had 2 biological children, and then she had like 5 or 6 foster children. Again, all small. I was like 15, maybe 16 when I went there. Her children, one was very young, I think, her 2 biological children, and one was 12. I think the one that was very young, he was very much protected or whatever. Like, I don't remember too much about the one of her biological children that I do remember about was a 12-year-old, and he was very small because he hadn't went through puberty, but he was bigger than all of the foster kids and sort of ruled them. I, however, when I came in the picture, I kind of screwed the whole scene up, right? Because I was bigger than him, and he basically wasn't gonna rule me. I should have taken warning, though I didn't because I wasn't wise, when the foster dad who did work, one day he was talking to me, and he told me this terrible story about how some kid threw a rock and hit him in the head with it, while he was on his motorcycle, and the rock hit the helmet. And he basically said he beat the hell out of this child. So I should have took a warning, and I didn't. So one day I was tapping on their fish tank. They had a pretty fish tank, and the 12-year-old said, "Don't tap on the fish tank." So I was like, I tapped on it again, 'cause that's how I did it. I was gangster. So he got really angry. He was like, "Don't tap on the fish tank." And he started coughing. And then he drank some water. And then he started screaming again. So then I tapped on it again. And he said, "How would you like it if I went to your room and I started touching your stuff?" And he ran to the room, and he went to my little tiny dresser where my clothes was, and he started, and he's like, touching your stuff and doing things to your clothes. How about that? And he started taking my clothes. He opened my door and he started taking my clothes and throwing my clothes behind him. So my clothes were being strewn all over the bedroom. I was much bigger than him, so I beat him to death. No, I'm just joking. I'm a pacifist. So I grabbed his hands so that he could no longer grab my clothes and throw them all over the room. And he struggled and struggled, but I was bigger and stronger than him, so he couldn't get away. So he said that I hit him, which I never struck him. I never hit him. I never pulled his hair or scratched him or anything like that. And the children were watching this, and whether it was a save they own answer since he ruled them, or the fact that he was struggling and I was struggling and maybe they thought I did hit him, all the children agreed that I hit him. So when the dad came home, the dad cussed me out like this close to my face, and as he was cussing me out, because he had just eaten, he was spitting food in my face. I was so terrified I didn't even move as food's being spit on me. Later, I probably cleaned the food off my face that he spit on my face. So I think that within 24 hours of that, they basically kicked me out of the home because he was going to kill me. It was a pretty frightening and crazy experience, quite frankly, for me. They had taken me back to the decent shelter home I had went to before, not before the foster mom of the little Prince 12-year-old, not before she shared, because she actually had to drive me back. They didn't even wait for CPS to pick me up. She got rid of me. She drove me back with the blessing of CPS. Not before she did everything in her power to poison the mind of the shelter mom who had me before against me. So I tried to stand up for myself as she's telling the shelter mom how terrible I was. And I remember the shelter mom basically said, "Be quiet and don't interrupt her." So I had to be quiet and not interrupt. And the only redemption to this is that after having stayed in the shelter home for a while, my shelter mom said, "You know, Neon, you are not as bad as she made you out to be." So I was kind of happy about that. So that's just my opinion and my experience about being in foster home and that crazy experience. I don't think I've ever tapped a fish tank again since. I'll respect fish. Being in the foster home. So that was my experience being in the in another foster home and shelter home. A couple foster homes I shared there. So if you like my videos, please like, subscribe, share, comment commercials, do one or more of those things. Thank you and best wishes.